Just a few days ago, SpaceX, a commercial spaceflight company, tested their very first launch of the Falcon Heavy Rocket. In this episode, we're going to briefly discuss what the Falcon Heavy is, what the launch was supposed to look like, and what happened a few days ago on February 6th. So let's talk about that. So to begin, let's talk about what the Falcon Heavy looks like. SpaceX has recently been more popularized by its ability to land Falcon 9 boosters on water, over on their drone ships, and on land. A Falcon 9 has 9 Merlin engines which are developed by SpaceX and is used to launch satellites, either government, NASA, or other countries, into space in different orbits and able to get up to geosynchronous orbit. Now, a Falcon Heavy is if you took one Falcon 9 and strapped 2 more on the side, making it 27 engines standing at 230 feet tall and able to send 37,000 pounds of payload to Mars. Falcon Heavy was originally announced in April 2011 with the original goal to launch in 2013. However, that had been continually pushed back because during that time frame they were trying to optimize the Falcon 9 and its ability to land rather than understanding, okay, let's make a stronger launch vehicle. Now, what is the goal for Falcon Heavy? Well, originally it was just supposed to be an orbital class rocket with all the boosters landing back into the ocean. And then as time went on, and when Falcon 9 was able to actually launch and land by sea and by land, it would then see that the Falcon Heavy would be able to do the same. So an ideal Falcon Heavy launch would include the launch of the Falcon Heavy, clearing the launch tower, and then as it got to the point where the 2 side boosters were detached, they would detach safely, then come back to Kennedy Space Center and land simultaneously on land at Kennedy Space Center. Then, as the main center stage would detach, it would then detach and either come back to land or come back to a drone ship by sea, depending on how much delta V the payload would need or what kind of orbit the payload would need to get into. Now, let's talk about what actually happened on February 6, 2018. At 3:45 p.m., the Falcon Heavy successfully took off from Launch Pad 39A in Florida. It cleared the launch tower and made its way into the upper atmosphere. As the 2 side boosters eventually ran out of fuel, or the fuel that they needed to launch the spacecraft, they then detached from the main booster, did a retro burn to slow itself down, and then started to come back towards Florida, while the center core and the second stage continued onwards. As the center core ran out of fuel, it then detached from the second stage, did its own retro burn, and started to direct itself towards the drone ship, which then it would try and land by sea. At the same time, the 2 side boosters are now coming back and landing simultaneously, as you see now, on the surface of Earth at Kennedy Space Center. Then, the center core ideally would land on the drone ship by sea and everything would have gone perfectly. However, what ended up happening was all the re-engineering of the center stage, having to lift those 2 extra side cores, made it so that they had never landed something like this before, and they had never landed it by sea before. So what eventually happened was, coming in at 300 miles per hour, just about 300 feet off of the side of the drone ship, the center core crashed into the water and missed it, meaning the launch wasn't 100% successful, but it was able to launch the spacecraft, get the Tesla Roadster into space, and save 2 of the 3 boosters that they had used. And a fun fact about the whole thing is the 2 boosters that they are actually able to save back at Cape Canaveral were 2 boosters that SpaceX had used before for their Falcon 9 launches, meaning that this is something that they can continually use in the future. However, all 3 stages were old stages of Falcon 9, which means even if they did save everything that they had, they wouldn't have ended up using it. So what does this launch mean? This launch is very important because it's helping lower the cost of getting anything to space. A very important aspect about spaceflight, or getting anything in space, is how much it costs just to send 1 pound or 1 kilogram. And that much can deviate depending on what kind of rockets are available and how expensive those rockets are. SpaceX, as a commercial spaceflight company, is trying to lower that cost so much that going to space is almost equivalent as taking a plane ride somewhere. And if they are able to do this with their continuation of Falcon Heavy and their future look into the big Falcon rocket BFR, then they will eventually be able to lower that cost small enough so that maybe everyone can one day get a trip into space. Thank you for watching.
Both boosters looking to be on track towards their respective landing zones.
Landing legs have started. Star boosters landing legs have deployed.